Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about how to multiply and divide exponents with the same base. So, as you can see, I have here written 5 to the second power. I talked about in a previous video how 5 to the second power is the same as 5 times 5, which equals 25. Now, you may have some exponential problems that are like this where they actually want you to evaluate the exponents and get an actual number, but that's not what we're talking about today. Instead, today we're going to be talking about what you do when we're just trying to simplify the exponential expressions. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do 5 to the second power times 5 to the third power. Now, instead of actually trying to evaluate and figure out what the number would be, because that's going to be a large number, what I instead want to do is just simplify this expression. What is 5 to the second power and 5 to the third power the equivalent of? And so, as I mentioned before, 5 to the second power is 5 times 5. And likewise, 5 to the third power is 5 times 5 times 5. And so what ends up happening is when we multiply exponents, we end up adding the powers together. Because 5 to the second power times 5 to the third power is the equivalent of saying 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. And so the way we express 5 times itself, 5 times, would be 5 to the fifth power. So let's do another example real quick. So let's say I wanted to do, how about we choose 3? So 3 to the third power times 3 to the third power. So the temptation many people might have would be to multiply them because you see that there's a multiplication symbol. But that would not give us 3 to the ninth power. That would not be the proper way to go about doing this sort of problem. Instead, what we want to do is, just like before, 3 to the third power is 3 times 3 times 3, and then we multiply that 3 times 3 times 3 because of the other 3 to the third power. So that's the equivalent of 3 to the sixth power. Again, just as before, we add those two exponents together instead of multiplying them or something else. Now let's talk about the other end. What about if we want to divide these exponents? And so moving forward with my examples, instead I'm going to use variables so that it's less distracting. And so with our variables, let's say I have x to the fifth power, and I want to divide it by x to the second power. Well, we talked about just now how when we multiply exponents with the same base, then we want to add the powers together. So since division is the opposite of multiplication, we want to subtract instead. So I take my x to the fifth power, x times x times x times x times x, and I'm dividing by 2 x's. And so, you know, when we have the same numbers on the top and the bottom of our division bar, they end up canceling one another out. And so, what's left, once I cancel all of that out, is 3 x's. So that's x to the third power. Now, just one more note about doing operations with exponents. When we're doing operations with exponents, specifically in simplifying, when we're doing multiplication and division, remember that different exponents with different bases cannot be mixed together this way. Now, we could simplify this as x to the third, y to the second, but the exponents themselves will not combine. So there's nothing else for us to do there. So just keep that in mind going forward when you're approaching these types of problems. So as always, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to get more updates on how to do problems like these and much more, as well as resources for students and so on. And make sure to visit our website at www.striveacademics.com for more information about that and more.